I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn where not just marketers, but people just kind of bash on different sales approaches, and that's not going to help anybody. So I think we could all just be a bit more kind and respectful and recognize that we're all out here hustling, doing our jobs, and when you're ready to work with somebody, just find somebody that's going to respect you as much as you respect what they're doing.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode 34 of Sales Stories in Real Life. I'm your host, Alex Bruschi, and this is the show where salespeople and marketers talk about memorable buying experiences when they were in the buyer's seat. Today's guest has me over the moon, one of the coolest, nicest, best energy people you will ever meet. She is the director of demand gen at Ion, the founder of Career Lab, where she helps entry to mid-level professionals level up in their career, land jobs with supportive companies. Make sure you follow her on LinkedIn. Welcome to the show, Brianna Doe. I hear that you had quite a memorable experience when you were shopping for an SMS provider. What happened there,
Yes.
Brianna?
Yeah, so thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So for context, I'm self-aware and I know that I am extremely hard to sell to. I I know it's a problem. And if I was in sales, I would not be the customer that I'm trying to pitch to. I'm hard to reach. I have a bad memory, so I forget to get back to sales reps. I it's very easy for me to feel like my personal space has been invaded if I get like a phone call or a text that I didn't sign up for or too many emails. Um, I know I'm hard to sell to, and it's something that as a leader in marketing, I'm also getting pitched to all the time, right? And I'm getting those cold DMs, and I can respect the hustle, but I'm just really bad at it. I'm really bad at receiving it until I need something, like until I'm looking for a product. And even then, it has to be the right fit for the person I'm speaking to, as well as obviously the right platform as well. So that's me in a nutshell. I was shopping around for an SMS platform, and I'd worked with some in the past. I kind of knew what I wanted to go with, like which company, but I was open to anything really. And at the same time, somebody happened to reach out from the company via email, and immediately from the first email, I was open. Like they were kind, they were respectful. They didn't have any of the like the clever jargon that makes me feel almost bad if I don't respond. They're just very straightforward. This is what we offer. Hope you're doing well. If this is something that you're interested in, I'd love to chat. They also offered a gift card, which was nice. I didn't want or need it, and if I didn't already plan on like launching an SMS program, I wouldn't have set the interview or the meeting. The gift card wouldn't have mattered. But from the first call, they weren't pushy. They asked a lot about like my challenges, why we're looking to set up SMS, what we're looking to accomplish, and then they went into their pitch. And I learned everything I would need to know in that call. They didn't rush it. They let me ask all the questions I needed. And at the end of the call, this could have been the deal breaker. I also don't make any decisions in the moment. First of all, I had a manager, so I needed to talk to them and make sure that we were good to go. But even if it was my decision, I like to process things and take a step back, and I'm not going to say yay or nay, at the end of the first call. So kind of was holding my breath near the end and finally said, I love everything you've had to say. I'll get back to you within this time frame if that works for you. And they just said, okay. They made sure I had their email address in case I had questions. Um, and they were just really kind. Like that's just what I couldn't get over. They were so kind and respectful of my time and respectful of what I needed, like for the company. And so, looking back on that situation, I also remember, I think I set like a 2 week turnaround time for getting back to them. So within that 2 weeks, I let them know, hey, we've actually deprioritized this for the next quarter, which puts us at January. Like I'll circle back at that point. So sorry for any inconvenience. And they weren't pushy. Like in the past, I'd had some experiences where I said that, like we've deprioritized this initiative. I'll circle back in Q2, Q3, and they just kept asking questions, and I just stopped responding because I told you what I needed. I told you when I need it, and now I have to move on to the projects that are a priority. And so they just said, okay. They checked in maybe 2 weeks before that deadline that I'd given myself and given to them. And I was completely signed on. Like we got the trial going, we got the project launched or the program launched, and it was by far the best experience with a sales team that I've ever had.
That's amazing. Seriously, there's so much to unpack here because there's so many subtleties to all of this that are very prevalent in today's environment. So like first and foremost, the first email that you received, right? Like all the way back to the beginning, it was just here it is, right? There was no smoke and mirrors. There was no, oh, well, but if you don't act now, right? Or oh, wait, there's more, right? It was, hey, here's what we offer, right? If you're interested in chatting, let me know. For someone who gets a lot of cold emails and probably a lot of cold calls as well, how does that land for you, right? Like, what are some emails that you're more likely to respond to? Excuse me. And what are some that you're less likely to respond to?
So the emails I am more likely to respond to are the ones that, this is a spicy take perhaps, but the ones that don't use particularly clever subject lines. I want to know, I can't remember the exact details, but I got this email the other day with the most horrifying subject line, like scary. They're basically threatening me and trying to get me to open the email. It was horrifying. It was a sales email. I don't like anything clever. Like I want to know who was trying to get a hold of me, what they want to talk about before I even click open. And then when I actually read the email, just being straightforward. Like, sure, I think it's nice if they say, "Hey, I saw your recent post on LinkedIn. This is what I liked," or "Hey, I saw you comment on this post and that you like this kind of thing." And then they launch into their pitch. That's fine. I also don't really need it. I know some people prefer that extra level of personalization, but I'm really strapped for time. Um, and when I'm trying to launch a project or a program, I just need to get it going. I need to get the tools and platforms I need and just be off to the races. So I appreciate straightforward, cutthroat. This is what we offer. The ones I'm less likely to respond to, like overly clever, um, or even what you mentioned, where they try and put these like time constraints on me and try to put me on their timeline instead of just giving me the information and, you know, respectfully asking if I'm interested.
I love that. And then once the timing was right, right? Obviously, nobody wants to talk about it, but timing is a very large portion of sales, right?
Mhm.
You could have the perfect message, wrong time, not going anywhere. Okay message at the right time, you're probably going to get somewhere. Even when you did get on the call, I really like that you distinctly said this. You got everything into that one call, right? It wasn't,
Mhm.
hey, we'll show you this on the next call, or hey, we'll have you talk with somebody else and they can kind of walk you through all that stuff. As a buyer, what's that experience like for you, right? You have the one time block that you set aside, you figure out everything that you need to know. And then, like you said, you're strapped for time. You can now go and kind of carry on with the rest of your work. How was that for you?
It was really nice, especially because for additional context, they reached out before our call and got some more information about like our traffic and some specific goals. And so they were able to customize the presentation and just handle everything at once. Because also, when I think about the fact that I have another stakeholder in this project, my manager, and I have to go report back to him and let him know what I've decided, I also don't want to be in that meeting with my manager asking me questions that I can't answer because they weren't answered in that call because I had to have a follow up instead of just having everything taken care of at once. So it's a huge relief, takes a huge weight off of my shoulders, and it allows me to make an informed decision when I'm ready to because I have all the information.
I really, really like what you said there, particularly around the let's just say not only getting the information in a timely manner, but like you're also when someone reaches out before a meeting to ask the hey, what are your engagement numbers or what's your SEO looking like, then
Mhm.
that saves time in the call itself. Instead of having to do the icebreaker and ask some of those qualification questions, then kind of the back half of it, then you get into the meaty stuff. When you can email someone in advance and ask for those things, number one, it shows that you know what you're talking about, right? It shows that you know your shit, you know the exact important points that need to be hit on. Like you said, it then allows you to make a custom presentation based on that information that you get in advance. And from the seller perspective, if somebody's going to give you that information in advance of a meeting, they sure as hell are going to show up to that meeting. And number two, that's a much more serious buyer than someone who's not kind of willing to divulge that information up front. So I've actually recently gone into that, sending emails in anticipation of meetings to have stuff prepared for meetings. I love that a lot. And it seems like it landed well for you too. There was another really interesting part that happened is that from the seller's perspective, I'm sure they thought the call went well. They gave you all the information. Sounds like for the most part, they did everything right. They were kind. They didn't put pressure on you. They kind of gave you the 2-week leash to get back to them. And then you got back to them and you said, hey, now it's deprioritized, right? This is a next quarter thing now. And so few sellers are even going to take that much kindness and care to get to that point. But then once you give them that deprioritization email, to your point, they keep asking questions. They maybe start putting pressure, right? I'm sure there's a whole bag of tricks that people are necessarily going to pull out. And it sounds like they took the high road and they continued their kindness. And it seems to have obviously resulted well for them in a sale. What's that like for you, right? Like when you genuinely have to push something off and somebody not only doesn't give you a hard time about it, but they just take your word, right? And just say, yep, totally understand and are kind about it.
Yeah, I mean, so I can empathize with the fact that I'm sure many sellers have met potential customers who say that they need more time, but they actually don't. They just don't want to make a decision and they might need a little more information that they don't know they're looking for. I respect that. And I'm sure that happens more often than I can even imagine. But like you said, I genuinely needed more time. And I'm very upfront about it too. This is why we deprioritized it. This is when we're getting back on track with it. Like I don't hold any of those details back. And so it takes so much pressure off because I already have pressure in all other areas of work, right? And I'm already juggling a lot. I carved out the time for the meeting. I'm probably stressed. Like, and now I just don't have the time to keep going back and forth when I already like established the boundary and told you what's going on with my company. And so if he hadn't already been an amazing person to work with, I would have thought so after that conversation because that is what kept him top of mind. When Q1 rolled around and we were ready, I immediately like emailed him and we got started. And so yeah, I still want to work with him. Actually, when I just started my new job and he reached out, like sent me a LinkedIn DM and said, congrats on the new role. If you decide to implement SMS, let me know. I was like, absolutely. I will literally not work with anybody else.
I just love the tone of that message too, right? It's not, hey, you're at a new company. Let's get XYZ company onboarded at your new role. Hey, if SMS is a priority, let's get a meeting on the calendar, right? It just keeps you so in control, right? And to your point, then you want to refer that people to other people who are looking for the same initiatives. You want to keep them top of mind when that timing is right. So I guess like for all of the times that you've had poor experiences and when you have good experiences like this, I mean, I don't even know how to phrase it, but like just how much of a weight is that lifted off your shoulders, right? That like, you know, when you need to shop for this specific thing, you know that you can go to someone and they're not going to hassle you. They're not going to make your life difficult. If anything, they'll make your life easier. Like to talk me through that.
It is invaluable. Like, because I'm a huge proponent or a huge fan of networking in general and building out those connections so that eventually there might be a point where I don't even have to go out and shop for a platform. I just open up my modern day Rolodex and give them a call and let them know that I'm ready to get started. And it just makes everything easier. It makes it easier to launch new programs. It makes it easier to experiment and to trust that what I'm experimenting with is going to work because I've already used it before in some capacity for a different company. It's the ideal situation to be in. And so I'm really grateful when I have the chance to meet sellers that interact with me in a way that I'm comfortable with, because then I can cross that off the list. I don't have to look for another platform ever again.
You just brought up you just brought up a really interesting point there that I feel like no sellers think about, because a lot of the things that we talk about as sellers is like cost of inaction, right? Like if you don't do this, then what happens? But like, let's say anytime you join a new company for the rest of your career, right? Or know someone that's looking to do an SMS initiative, like you said, it's so much easier to put those plans into action when you know that you have the platform and you have the seller that you want to work with. So say, for instance, you're a company that doesn't know of this company and you want to implement an SMS campaign. There's that additional process of, hey, we got to go find a vendor, right? that adds extra friction into the deal, and deals probably get lost by that. There are probably companies that want to do SMS, but don't want to go through the buying process. And you can insert any vendor, right? It's not just SMS. I'm just using this as an example. So if you could be easy to do business with, easy to buy from, that makes it easier for companies to implement initiatives that support your tool. I never thought about it that way. That is on the money.
Oh yeah. So we're looking at paid media agencies right now at my current company, and the first person I'm going to reach out to is somebody that I just worked with at the last company for that specific reason. So
Referrals make the world go around, don't
they
they?
really do. They really, really do.
Brianna, this has been amazing. I almost messed up there, called myself. It's Brianna, not Brianna. This has been outstanding. Seriously, I've like changed perspectives on so many things, especially that last point that we just touched on. We do have a lot of B2B sellers that are listening to the show. And I'm sure since it's your episode as well, people from in actual marketing will probably tune into this episode as well. What would be a takeaway that you would give our sellers, and what would be a takeaway that you'd give marketers that are listening?
That's a good question. So for sellers, I recognize you can't know everything about everybody that you're reaching out to, but my advice would be to err on the side of just being respectful. If somebody can't do it right now, if it's been a deprioritized program, or if they can't get back to you for a certain number of days or weeks, be respectful and follow up if you want to, but do it in such a way where you're not trying to push them into a decision. If they're not going to make the decision, they're not going to make it. And when they are ready to make it, if you've been pushy, they're a lot less likely to go with you. So, and also another point actually, which we just talked about, think long term. If you build that relationship with Brianna at one company, Brianna's going to move on to another company within 2, 3, 4 years. You might have a whole other opportunity in front of you if you take the time to build that rapport and build trust. And for marketers, don't be like me. Be a bit more open. And, you know, even when I don't love somebody's approach, or when I feel, or when I think it's really off-putting, I still make sure to be respectful and gracious and let them know that we're not interested, or thank them for their time. You know, I see a lot of posts on LinkedIn where not just marketers, but people just kind of bash on different sales approaches, and that's not going to help anybody. So I think we could all just be a bit more kind and respectful and recognize that we're all out here hustling, doing our jobs, and you know, when you're ready to work with somebody, just find somebody that's going to respect you as much as you respect what they're doing.
Super well said. I love that. There's no ultimatums. There's no need to bash, right? Like, we're all human. We've all probably made that same mistake, whether we want to admit it or not. So I really like that. We could use a lot more Brianna energy in the world. Sadly, we do have to wrap though. So why don't you plug something with the audience? I know you just started at a new role. I know you're working on the career lab. We're all extremely tuned into what you're doing on LinkedIn. You've got quite the tribe. Let's hear it.
So I'm going to pitch something completely separate. I recently launched an online publication called What Makes You Tick, where I interview entrepreneurs, creatives, marketers, artists, whatever the case may be, like however you identify with work or your side hustles. I just interview them. We just chat for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and I find out what drives them. And so if anybody is interested, you can find the link on my profile and apply, and I will reach out to you.
Go to Brianna's profile, hit that link, follow her while you're there. Brianna, this has been so outstanding. To the people who are still listening, we appreciate you. Hopefully there's sellers here. Hopefully there's marketers here. But seriously, there's a lot to take away from this episode, and a lot to take away from this great sales and buying experience that you had. Again, thank you so much for your time. Can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Sales Stories in Real Life fam. See you next week. Cheers.